Hello and welcome to the Train the Trainer session for Platform Implementation London Release. My name is Stacy Bailey and I am both the curriculum developer and course owner. This recording was made in September 2018. As part of the Train the Trainer overviews, we try to recognize and affirm the course positioning and delivery modes, look at the scope and flow of the course, especially as it compares to the previous version, examine some of the innovations and tools employed in the course that you'll need to use and facilitate as part of the course delivery, look at the content in each module, and also outline the course support model. Before being certified to teach the London release of this course, you must complete all 5 tasks shown here. We will review these in detail at the end of the recording as well. Please note that there is also a quiz as part of this. So I really want to make sure that everybody understands all of the moving parts and components of this course and can convey them properly to students. To get started, let's look at the context of this course in the learning paths. If you'll notice, we are on the implementer path, so all students following this path must take ServiceNow Fundamentals and or test out of it with the CSA certifications. We also have a self-paced SAFE Fundamentals course to examine our ServiceNow implementation methodology. From there, all students on this path should complete the platform implementation course before specializing in one of several product lines. Please note there is still no CIS platform level certification. That generalized certification went away as part of the Jakarta release, and as far as I know, there are no plans to bring it back specifically. We look at the course positioning. Unlike the previous incarnations of the course prior to Kingston, this course is for technical audiences only. The Implementation Bootcamp course split its focus between non-technical staff such as engagement managers and BPCs, as well as the technical staff. In here, we are focused only on technical implementers of the platform. So those technical resources who implement platform applications and functionality directly, make architectural design and solution decisions, as well as use platform technology while implementing line of business applications such as HR, ITSM, etc. As prerequisites, we ask that students have completed the fundamentals course or passed the CSA exam. We also expect that they have completed the SIM methodology course. We have approximately 2 or maybe 3 slides in the whole course that touch on the implementation methodology. There will be resources for students who have not completed this to do that as homework. We also require that students have technical backgrounds in software development or system administration. We are not going to spend our time going over the basics of what a database is or what a user interface is. As part of this class, we give students hands-on practice completing the most common implementation requirements that are fairly universal to most all deployments. We will provide introductory high-level overviews of many capabilities within the platform, but again, since the platform is so wide, we can't go much more beyond scratching the surface. However, we do try to give resources to further your learning in multiple areas. We'll teach students how to use common resources to learn more about platform topics. Again, here, we can only go so deep in the class, but students need to know about docs, about HI, and where to go to learn more and to dig in, to both learn about the application as well as learn how to work around known issues. We'll provide opportunities to experience working as part of an implementation team. This version of the course still includes the mini implementation where students get the pressure dialed up to complete requirements within specified periods of time. And then finally, we've made a concerted effort to allow students to encounter platform functionality not included in the lecture, but they get to touch visual task boards, they get to touch the quiz capability, they get to interact with a virtual agent. So we've tried to arrange these encounters not to be a distraction, but just to kind of see the art of the possible, and also get hands-on with some of our newer technologies that may not make it into day-to-day implementation projects yet. Again, this class will not teach students everything in the platform. There are people who've been around this platform for years who still don't know everything in the platform, myself included. We will not teach basic software development guidelines, practices, or the ServiceNow implementation methodology. We expect that you have either gone through the prerequisites or have the basics of Agile under your belt. And we will also not give step-by-step instructions for anything that students should have learned in fundamentals. This is not a beginner level course. When we look at our goals and objectives for the class, we want students to be able to look at customer requirements and assess accuracy, clarity, feasibility, and size of customer requirements. Get a sense of what customer requirements look like, both the good and the bad, and know how to follow up, what questions to ask, etc. Recognize, understand, and apply the primary platform building blocks to satisfy custom requirements. So whether we are implementing existing applications that we have in ITSM, HR, CSM, etc., or building a brand new application, we are still working with the same building blocks. We are still working with the same architectures. Understand what you're working with, some of the common ways that those go together to satisfy requirements in ways that maximize supportability, maintainability, and upgradability. We will practice developing design solutions as part of the lab exercises as well as the mini implementations in such ways that we are compliant with technical best practices and common application design patterns. We'll implement common tasks included as part of the initial setup for the majority of customers, including LDAP, SSO, and also multi-factor authentication. Finally, we'll apply everything that we learned as part of the class to have a simulation of an actual implementation working with other people in the class. Now, there's been some pushback over doing this in a virtual class delivery. However, the majority of our deployments are done virtually as well. So this is almost even more valuable with a virtual delivery of the class. Let's take a look at the deltas between Kingston and London. Here we're looking at the table of contents from Kingston on the left and London on the right. One of the biggest differences is that we went from a 5-day format for the class to a 3-day only format. So there's a lot less content that we have in London versus Kingston. So yeah, we had to cut a lot of goodness out of it, but hopefully we've got a much more streamlined experience for students. So take a look here and kind of see where the deltas are, and then we can move on to look at the daily schedule. Kingston's down at the bottom. We had general awareness on day 1 with a lot of interactive activities, followed by initial instance configuration and building blocks, moving into more sophisticated development on day 3, virtual teaming on day 4, and instance management on day 5. In the new 3-day format for London, we've pretty much got everything morning, afternoon, morning, afternoon, morning, afternoon. We start out with preparation, where we essentially have all the content that was in day 1 of the 5-day version, as well as most of the day 2 content. So preparing for an engagement, and then the initial instance configuration. Day 2, we go into development in the morning, automation in the afternoon. Day 3 is testing in the morning, mini implementation in the afternoon. These are huge, huge topics, so dedicating and limiting each to about 4 hours is a little bit tough. As such, we had to drop a number of topics, and I've tried to indicate here where the topics we've dropped or reduced scope in are covered. So here you can see archiving is covered in sysadmin advanced, Branding is in ServiceNow Fundamentals. Encryption is in the Data Encryption ebook. So read through these, be able to answer questions about where these topics are covered. I have also reduced scope in several areas. So Agile Development, you see a -5 there. APIs and Integration Tools, -10. These are order of magnitude evaluations of how much I've reduced the content. So in the Kingston version for APIs and Integration Tool, we had a whole section of a module that focused on just looking at all of these capabilities. That has been completely dropped from the course, -10. Whereas integrations, email, -1, a little bit less content there. So again here, this is just orders of magnitude. Each of those topics in the reduced scope still appear to some degree in the course, but a little bit less than we had before. We have increased scope just a touch with an encounter with Guided Tour Designer, a lab on multi-factor authentication, and a virtual agent encounter for students. If we look at the architecture diagram, I've tried to highlight those areas of the Now platform where students will either get hands-on experience or an encounter. So for example, we've got virtual agent along the left. We use a virtual agent chatbot to reinforce some of the concepts students learn in Module 1, the preparation section. So the chatbot will ask questions, and based on the information students have learned, they will need to respond to the chatbot. Guided tours, we also have an encounter with that where we use a guided tour to show students how the backlog and stories work in the context of this class. Workflows, Flow Designer, Form Designer, Integration Hub, etc. we have addressed in some of our lecture and hands-on activities. If we look at our mix of activity types, we've got hands-on learning with labs and feature encounters. Labs are traditional, we know kind of what to expect there, and that's not much different from the Kingston version of the class. We have our step-by-step lab guides. We have challenge mode where students can complete all of the lab activities and work just by using the information in the stories. That's called challenge mode. And then we also have ATF validation tests for every lab to test that the work has been completed appropriately. We also have added feature encounters. Again, here we've got a guided tour to show people around Agile. We still have our visual task board sorting exercises, a quiz. We've added a conversation with virtual agent, and we still have our social Q&A. We do have a group activity with what we're now considering the capstone mini implementation effort. Our class scenario is exactly the same as before. We are technical consultants assigned to a new implementation project. The requirements workshop has already been completed. The backlog of stories has already been created and populated. So very, very importantly, if you have students who say that they've got ServiceNow experience, encourage them to challenge themselves to work the stories just from their student instance without going back to the step-by-step instructions. If they need help, they can still go to the lab guide. So for every lab, I think we've got maybe one that's not suitable for this. We've got challenge mode where you use just the story details. We talked about that. But we also have optional labs, or kind of pick your own adventure. So in a couple of cases, we've got one highlighted here for labs 402 and 403, where we've got a simple version and a more advanced version. So students who are newer to the platform can choose the simpler one. Students who are more advanced can choose the Pro Code version. Students who work really fast can do both. That's okay. We also have a couple of optional labs, so if students finish the mandatory labs early, they can try the optional ones, or they could try the optional ones as homework. Class resources are split into a couple different areas. Student instance includes all of the Agile backlog as well as ATF content. We also have the platform implementation instance where we have a persistent knowledge base. The knowledge base has reference materials, additional articles, and insights regarding capabilities covered in the class, as well as social Q&A. Social Q&A needs to be used during class. Have students vote up things that they like in there. Add additional answers in there as well. We also have our participant guide with our slides and step-by-step lab instructions, as well as our team instances that we use on the last day of class. In the platform implementation instance, we also have report a training class defect. If you find a typo, or if a student finds a typo, or something that doesn't work right, or something that gives an error, or something that's not configured right, have them go in here, show them how to do this in Module 0 to give page, defect type, and a description. I will get an immediate notification about this, and it will allow me to improve the materials so that you have smoother deliveries and students have better experiences. Definitely use this. However, make sure that you validate things in here as well. Our launch date. All London courses, unless specified elsewhere, will launch on September 24th. So beginning that week, we'll use all of the London version of the materials. Let's take a look at resources in student instances and available to you to deliver during the course. We have stories. Story backlog is pushed into each student instance as well as your instructor instance. A sprint is a set of labs assigned together. So if we look at sprint 3 here, lab sprint 3, we can see that we're doing lab 203 and lab 204. It's actually choose one or the other. A sprint is a dedicated segment of class time to do lab work. Okay, if you add up the points in a particular sprint, that's about how many minutes you'll need to allocate to students to complete the work. We have a story per set of lab tasks. One lab can include multiple stories. So you can see here for lab 201, we have 3 stories as part of this. We have an epic per lab. The titles and the lab numbers should match what you see in your book. Numbers will indicate module, lab, and task set. Points are based on the average time it took students to complete the work in the beta class, and we've got what product we're working on identified as well. Each of these stories is accompanied by an ATF test plan. You have a dashboard overview of how students are doing. So there are 2 sections. You can see the overall canceled failure success rate. If everybody in the class is failing on their ATF test plan, maybe there's something wrong with the lab, maybe there's something wrong with the instance. If only a few are failing on a test, then you can use the detailed test errors to see exactly where they are failing. Use this information as an instructor when you do your lab reviews. When students have completed it, take a look here. If students got hung up on a particular area of the lab, go back in here, reinforce that, discuss it. Where did they go off track? What should they have done? We do have the building blocks quiz. It is very similar to what we had before. However, I have changed the report that we see at the end. So instead of just getting a speedometer dial, you'll see a pivot table with passed or failed. When you take a look and drill in, you'll be able to see the category, the metric, which is like what question it was. The string value is what the student answered. The correct answer, of course, is what they should have answered. Very, very importantly, please, if you as an instructor disagree with any of the answers that I've given here, let me know. fill out a defect report. We also have a section in the course, and you can actually use this twice in the course, where we have actual customer requirements to be able to assess whether or not they're good requirements, bad requirements, what questions you should ask to get more detail, and also discuss solution options and best practices. Only instructors can see this in the platform implementation instance. You'll see sample customer requirements, display random requirement. You do that, and then you can just click select random requirement to get a new one. This is a very flexible portion of the class. You can go through 3 of these, you can go through 5 of them, depending on your timing and how students are doing with this. Visual task boards are also used. I've left both of them in there for this London release that we had in Kingston, but only one is referred to as part of the class activities. We've got our Common Resource Awareness quiz for London. So this is how it starts. We've got a column that says sort these. Students will sort them into the appropriate resource that they would go to get this information. Then they would run the ATF test suite to evaluate their results and see if they've gotten things in the right column. Now, some of these can be found in multiple locations. Again here, go back, use your ATF dashboard, see what people answered, discuss it, and if there are significant disagreements about whether or not something is correct, put in a class defect for me to take a look at, okay? All right, the knowledge base. This is again in the platform implementation instance. I will be running scripts to update the categories to match our new London modules right around the 24th or so. All instructor resources, including slides, will be posted in the knowledge base. I will not be posting slides in Box due to some security concerns that have been raised. In the student knowledge base as well, we have a number of social Q&A questions. We've also got tiny URLs in the participant guide that are active and linked to these social Q&A articles. Use them, have students contribute to these, and you also contribute to these. Please don't ignore this. This is a very valuable way to interact with students. If students are not culturally inclined to speak up during class, having them put in an entry here or vote up or down answers they like is a really, really good way to engage. It also will lend a little bit of notoriety to students who respond with very popular and valuable answers. We will use this information to revise and refine the course materials. Now, course support model. In addition to being able to submit feedback and defects, we also have an instructor chat. This is my primary communication channel to all instructors for the class, including both our ServiceNow employees as well as our partner instructors. Make sure before you teach this class, each time you teach it, go back, look through this, make sure that you've caught up on any unread messages. For me, if messages are not read within 3 minutes, I will get an email. You will too, unless you set digest, okay? I am totally cool with you setting digest on this so that you only get them once a week, may actually read through them, okay? So I will see this, but please use this for interacting about the curriculum, not instance performance. So again, that's in conjunction with reporting a class defect. If you have many implementation instances that are slow or performance issues with your instance, in your instructor instance, use the Need Help link
to submit an incident to C-Labs. They have staff that are available 24 hours a day who have the skills to troubleshoot that. Okay? So training class defect is for curriculum. I am working on a new feedback model that will allow us to submit enhancements or defects straight from the student instance. This will first go to your instructor instance, where I'd like to ask each of you to validate this. Many of the defects or enhancements that students submit may not actually be defects at all or enhancements. So you use your skills, and if the defect is just something that they've misinterpreted or are doing wrong, you can address that with them. Same thing with the enhancement. If it's something where they just don't know about a feature or functionality, you can intercept that. However, you can also validate that yes, this is a defect for the class or something that you agree should be added. When you validate that, that will go to the training instance in a backlog for me to look at. Okay, so that will be coming soon. Take a look at the instructor chat for that to be available. Again here, if you are experiencing issues with instance performance, use need help in your instructor instance. Everything to do with curriculum or instance configuration is report a training class defect. Now here's what you need to do. For each and every class that you teach for platform implementation, approximately 4 days before class starts, create a new class in the platform implementation instance. Click the Start Class UI action to allow students to sign into the class. Note the class number and include that in a welcome letter to students. The morning of the first day, verify that all students have signed in to class on the PI instance. You will gather good information about their background, their experience levels, etc. that will help you tailor the class to this particular audience. Show them the knowledge resources in the platform implementation instance and also show them how to report defects. On the afternoon of the last day, go into the PI instance and close the class out. So that's every time you teach the course, that's what you need to do. In order to be certified to teach the London version of platform implementation, I'd like you to watch this video, which you're doing right now, and you're at the end, so congratulations. I will be tracking this. Watch the TTT videos for each module. I'll post these in the knowledge base, and I will track who views them when. These TTT videos for each module can also be used as quick refreshers. I don't care if you listen to it at twice the normal speed, but if you haven't taught the class in a while, listen to the TTTs for each module the day before you have to teach it, just as a quick refresher, making sure that you hit all the highlights. Spin up a set of instances and complete all labs. Again here, I will be tracking that and tracking that on a regular basis. Go into the platform implementation instance, answer each of the social Q&A questions. Again here, I will be tracking that. Take the quiz and pass with an 85% or better. I'm finalizing the quiz right now, and I will assign it to each of the instructors who is ramping up or is certified to teach the class. Once you complete that, you'll receive access to the instructor decks. If you teach the class without completing these steps, meaning that you don't have authorized access to the instructor decks, just know I will be tracking and reporting that as well. Thank you, good luck, and please understand how much I appreciate all you do to make platform implementation a success for ServiceNow and for our students.